hand on this.
Let us pray. Most kind of loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for the blessings of life. We thank you for the opportunity to come together and visit some people of City of Lexington. Father, I pray that you bless our rules, grant them wisdom for you with us tonight during this time. Be the blessed fortune in our community. Watch over us, guide us, direct us, forgive us what we faith. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Please, to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brett Ellis. Here. Roger Lawson. Here. Tim Rhodes. Here. Jimmy White. Here. Gordon Eldridge. Here. Gabe Williams. Sandra Wood. Here.
Gabe is in March, his daughter on a high school team, and they're in the state tournament. So Gabe is not with us tonight, and I know he will be. All right, so first thing I want to do is I want to thank TVA. In a minute, I'm going to go around the room and just let everybody, we'll do introductions of each other. I do want to thank TVA for being here tonight and having this discussion with our board. I am a big fan of TVA. Our community would not be what it is without TVA. Our water source, our power, TVA has done a lot for us, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate your agency, work forward, and what y'all do for us. And at this time, let's just start, and we'll go. Jimmy, just start when you introduce yourself, and we'll go around the room.
Me?
Yes, sir. Just there we go.
Oh, I thought we just answered. I'm Jimmy White. I'm the Veteran Service Officer in Houston County, and I'm also Alderman here in the city.
Roger Lawson, my first year serving as Alderman here in the city.
Mallory McCollum. Mallory, do public awareness for the city of Lexington, and I'm the secretary for the meetings.
Jeff Griggs, City Mayor.
Sandra Wood, Tennessee Department of Agriculture, Division of Forestry, and also Alderman Johnson.
Tim Rhodes, retired, Alderman 7 years.
Brett Ellis, Alderman 2.5 years.
Gordon Wildridge, I'm the Wildridge Machine Shop here in town. I think it's my third term in Alderman the city.
Jason Sparkman, I'm a regulatory analyst in West Tennessee. And Howard Wilson, manager of regulatory assurance and compliance in West Tennessee.
Ryan Smith, I'm the Director of Customer Relations at TVA for West Tennessee. I was somewhat of a local boy. I grew up in Tennessee, but my mom was the maintenance from here. So, but she's been gone for 40, 50 years now. So.
I'm Javonna Wilson, regulatory analyst for the West Tennessee area out of Memphis, Tennessee.
Also, I've got Matt Wood with ATA. He does auditing for the Lexington Electric System. I've got Ken Walker's our city attorney that's sitting back here. And there's other folks in the room, but I will just leave it with those introductions. Do y'all have something that y'all want to show before we go into the questions on this PowerPoint? Or is there anything that y'all wanted to open up with, or you just want to let my side open up the questions?
I'll be happy to do it however y'all really plan on, to be honest with you, Mayor. We do have some slides to go through that might answer some of the questions on the front end, but let me just say, I want this to be informal. If it's real formal, I'll get nervous, so y'all please interrupt and ask questions. And so it's okay, y'all. I'm just going to do it right here. I think we got it where
We are. Let me go ahead and tell you this.
Sir.
There's nobody going to kill and eat nobody in here.
Oh, sorry.
And we got Rick Whitehead with MTAS just walked in as well. All right, y'all, time to be.
Thank y'all for allowing us to reschedule this. I know last time we had weather, it wound up being too terribly bad in this area. Other parts of the valley were not so fortunate. Today wasn't the greatest either, but I think I rode the back of that wave coming across over here, And just thank y'all for allowing us the ability to do that and to come before y'all today.
We've learned how to get rain and storm, just playing something with TVA.
Either that or wash your car. That's right.
Well, y'all stole my opening joke about bringing storms for this, so I guess I'll have that in the way. I do want to take a moment. I didn't tell Brian this ahead of time because he had told me not to do it, but I do want to recognize that Brian, y'all's customer relations manager, has just recently been promoted to director of regional relations at TVA. So congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Congratulations. We wanted to do that. And I wanted me to tell y'all, that's why I was going to tell him I was going to say that. So yeah, this is going to be informal. We did get the questions, Mayor and Board, and we'll be happy to go through whatever variations of those y'all would like to. We just kind of wanted to run through a high-level presentation of what our role is with regulatory. So again, at any point, if I say something you don't understand, you have questions, just throw something and yell at me. So our mission is pretty straightforward. It's pretty the same as yours. Across the valley, just to serve the people of the valley and make life better. So, we serve over 10 million customers and over 80,000 square miles across 7 states, of course, Tennessee. A lot of people don't realize that you actually cut in a piece of North Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia, as well as, of course, Tennessee and Kentucky. So, I do have some notes here and try to refer to them as little as possible, but just to keep myself organized here. So that's the mission, and then so here's really where we come in, all of us here together with the public power and the local control. So public power just really means that we're not obliged to investors, we don't have stockholders, we're not trying to make a profit. Our focus is on low cost and reliable electricity for all the ratepayers across the valley. TVA was established in 1933 by an act of Congress, and we work closely with LPCs. We love an acronym, and I will use that. So we'll go ahead and say local power companies, LPCs, such as Lexington Electric here, is one of our 153 that we work closely with to make life better. We have a regulatory oversight role that we exercise. There's several ways that we do that. Overseeing LPC's financial health, their policies, and then, of course, each LPC served by TVA is responsible for managing its own electric system operation. We refer to that as local control, as you'll see in that fourth bullet there. So that's really, this is my opinion, but I'd say the cornerstone of why this works is the local control. Each system is unique in its own way. As I'll cover here in a slide or two, Lexington electric system itself is uniquely unique in its footprint. And so that local control is extremely important. Just a quick overview. So the next slide, actually. Yeah. You can see here, of course, this was as of annual report of 2023, but it'll all be still pretty close. But 23,000 customers, but what's unique about that was that the electric is only roughly 5,000 within the city limits of Lexington. So while it's a municipal electric system, it really functions more as a core, serving multiple communities. Of course, you all here provide that oversight and the local control, and then it's managed by the general manager, Brad, the day-to-day operations. And pretty rural system, less than 12 customers per mile, and then there's just some great information for you all. All right, this will be the most technical slide that we have, I promise. So this is the authority. So this is how we regulate, why we regulate. It comes, of course, through the Constitution and the TVA Act. So the Constitution says that Congress has the power to dispose of property of the United States, and then case law said that TVA's power to generate is property of the United States. So then that was delegated to the TVA Board, to the TVA Act. And so the TVA Board is who determines our regulatory authority and how we will exercise that. And there's really two key areas that everything falls under our regulatory umbrella, and I mean, they're really pretty straightforward. We want to keep rates low, and we want to make sure that nobody is discriminated against within the system. So that all customers are in the same rate class, get the exact same treatment, and that the rates are as low as possible. carry out that regulatory authority. Again, there's two big objectives, low rates and non-discrimination. Then there's 6 areas that we really focus on. The first of which, of course, is retail rates. So the TVA board sets the wholesale rates. So what Lexington pays TVA for a kilowatt hour is the same thing that all 153 local power companies pay TVA for that. And then the retail rates are determined based on, again, local control, local decision, and a variety of other factors. We recognize that Lexington is going to be different than a Macon, Mississippi, or a Memphis Light Gas and Water. That they're two separate things, and so the rates are determined at the local level through a variety of factors. But the key with the rates, of course, is to make sure that the electric system is self-supporting and financially sound. And secondly, non-discrimination. I always just try to explain this by saying, if me and Jason live beside one another, then we should be treated the exact same way. If we call the power company with a complaint or an issue, we should get the same service, same rate, and all that. User revenue, which I know that's one of the things we wanted to hit on and talk about tonight, of course, is OPCs are required to use electric system revenues for electric system purposes. And within the power contract, there's priority, and I've got a detailed slide on that we can run through that kind of lays that out. But the gist of it is that electric system revenue has to be used for electric purposes. And financial and accounting, so we monitor financial health and ensure that professional accounting standards are followed. Giovanna and Jason here, they wear a lot of hats, but one of the primary ones is ensuring that Lexington Electric and other local power companies follow those accounting standards and are financially healthy. And then joint use. So any assets that are jointly used between electric and non-electric. So typically what we'd be referring to here would be like water, sewer, sanitation, and now in y'all's case broadband. That the electric is paying its fair share, but also not subsidizing any other department there. So that joint use is properly accounted for. And then finally, rules and regulations. All right. I will not go through all these. There's just a couple areas I wanted to hit on. These are all of our different oversight activities. But one of the areas I wanted to hit on is very quickly right up here. You can see that mouse in Section 5, the rate and credit check. So this is a function that our group performs on a periodic basis where we come in and check all rate classes. So any rate class that Lexington Electric has, we would come in and check to ensure those rates are being properly and consistently applied, and then any credits that are being offered, we check those as well to make sure that they're going where they're supposed to be going. And then over here to the far right, under the schedule of terms and conditions, last 3 of 4 bullet points there, the monthly reporting, annual report, and external audit report. So this is how we ensure on a monthly, annual basis. We've got Matt from ATA here who helps with y'all's external audit. They do a great job. So monthly, of course, TVA, a lot of other departments within TVA use this information as well. They're evaluating the monthly financials, and then we do a deep dive with the annual report and the external audit.
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In section 6 up there, you've got this added broadband package review.
In the last 4 or 5 years, yes, sir, we have.
So that is something that's coming more and more that gets in line with the system.
That's correct. Yes, sir. When the state legislature passed that, well, munis have been able to do it for a while, but co-ops are able to do it here in the last 4 or 5 years. And that's where it started getting a little more interesting when you're talking about city government versus a private entity like a co-op. It had a little bit of a wrinkle to it, but I would say we've done broadband package reviews, especially in instances where electric system funds are being used to either fund or propagate broadband division or broadband development.
I have a question, but we'll wait for the end.
Yeah, just whenever you want to ask it. But yeah, so what's unique, especially with a cooperative system in general, is there's really no other revenue stream to start a broadband division other than electric system revenue, right? And so we developed a process, whereas, and and LPC can come through that process, get approval to loan that money, and if there's, some steps for us to go through that. And Lexington has been through that process and done it very well. Yeah, that is relatively new, just the push throughout the valley for rural products. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just for I make sure I understand this, you said Lexington is unique in that it is a municipality-owned system, but it functions as a co-op.
I wouldn't say it functions as a co-op, it's just looking at it from the outside, looking in, it looks more like a co-op due to density of customers per mile and just how much rural area you serve. Whereas, Jackson Energy Authority seems to be associated, just the city limits of Jackson is basically all they serve. Whereas Lexington serves the city of Lexington and also a big chunk of Henderson County, Decatur County, and parts of a few other counties. So it's a little different. Like Paris is similar. Paris is owned by the city of Paris, but they serve all of Henry County. What's County serves outside their footprint too, but that's a county, maybe it's a little different. But that's what I think that's what you're trying to say. It looks more like a co-op based on the density of customers per mile you serve.
And the fact that it serves outside of the city.
So basically, that's what a co-op is a utility that serves people outside of its county or city.
Well, the co-op is a little bit different in that the cooperative is owned by its members, its customers, or they call it their members, and so they all own the cooperative jointly, and so they serve whatever service territory they have. So I know close to y'all in Southwest, bus up to you guys in southwestern corner, probably for the most part, the southern side of Lexington system. But Southwest serves a huge territory, mostly rural areas coming from the Mississippi River almost to the Tennessee River. And so they serve almost all the way around Jackson and a few other areas in Henderson County, and they go all the way over and serve north of MIGW and Bolivar and a few other places around there. So it's just, munis and co-ops are just a little different, where munis is owned by municipalities. The co-ops are owned by their members who receive service.
How are boards formed for governing boards in a co-op?
They're unique, or some of them are unique, some of them are voted on across the whole, and some of them have districts where they have board members assigned that way, but they're voted on by their membership. Somewhat similar, I guess. I guess some of y'all get voted on to be alderman, but I'm not sure how all that works. It's similar.
Y'all use the word unique for LES. Our city is unique. I mean, in fact, that we own all our utilities, our water and gas, we go outside the county too, just like LES does. Our broadband will. On a given day, we have 39,000 people that come to our daytime population here. Unusual. We own our own school system. I mean, Lexington is very unique town. Not only LES, but all the
Right.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Yeah, that's really just what I meant. It's the footprint of Lexington Electric. It's a little unique. Okay, and then just the last thing I wanted to hit on is the complaint resolution program right here. So this was created by TBA Regulatory Assurance in 2016-17. I don't actually have that number, that date in front of me, but in roughly that time frame. And what's unique about that is we wanted to offer an opportunity for the end-of-the-line ratepayer customers to have an opportunity, if they have an issue that can't be resolved at the local level with the power company, to be heard. And so Amanda West runs that program for us. She's not with us tonight, but she does a great job. But the reason I'm highlighting that is to say that it is very uncommon that we get a call to that through Lexington Electric. And I say that for a reason, because that means that the staff here at Lexington Electric is doing a very good job of handling that at the local level. We're not getting complaints coming through to that on any consistent basis. So just wanted to highlight that.
I get copied on most of those. I think the last time we've had multiple complaints in a short period of time was when the tornadoes came through and took out our towers over there on the other side of the substation. And it took us a while to get that built back up. Obviously, it was a tough situation. But hopefully when we get the Jackson Creek to West Lexington line built, it'll give y'all another tap in here and provide some redundancy for the city of Lexington to be dual fit instead of being regular.
I know the former manager Graves fought for that for years.
He did.
And that's, we we appreciate that. We need it, and it's something that he always says we needed, and we thank you for TVA for making that happen.
I agree 100%. It's gonna allow a lot of redundancy and resiliency for the city of Lexington to have that in place.
So here's our service practice policies framework. And so back several years ago, we developed this service practice policy framework. And the way I always try to describe it, just kind of put it simply, is we developed like a left boundary and a right boundary. And we said, hey, anything within this, is fair game, and it's local control, as long as your policies fall within these boundaries, develop them as best fits for your system. There's 4 key areas there. So deposits, to make sure that they're being applied consistently and fairly. Termination of service, which would be your disconnects for non-payment. Billing, sure everybody's being billed, they're getting the same billing time, the same billing rules, standards, etc. And then information to customers, so to make sure that there's consistent, equitable communication to all ratepayers across that. And so in 2015, Lexington submitted, LES submitted their SBPA and were approved, and those are still in place and on file with us. So any material change that we made to those for some reason, I know that would likely come before you all and the board, we would just ask for it to be copied on those so we can keep all of our records up to date. So here's the use of revenue section. So it's within our wholesale power contract, and this is what I hit on earlier, about the priority of revenues and how they can be used. And so within the power contract, the municipality agrees that they'll use revenues from electric operations for the following purposes. The first is operating expenses. That, of course, includes the power bill for TVA, which typically makes up anywhere from 65 to 75% of all revenues for any local power company. The second area would be payments on system indebtedness. Third would be the establishment of reasonable reserves, and that's, of course, just to make sure that the system is sustainable not just today, but tomorrow as well. And then finally, tax equivalent payments, or they're often referred to as pilots. Tax equivalent, in lieu pilot, all the same thing. Some people call them different monikers. So that's those orders. So then anything beyond that would be considered surplus revenue. And the power contract specifies that that can be used for new electric system construction, early retirement for system indebtedness, or in some cases even the reduction of electric rates. Again, rates as low as feasible. So if there's surplus beyond that, then at that point there'd be an evaluation of potentially lowering. And then here's the guidelines themselves. So this, the TVA board approved these in 2013. And so here, this really wants to kind of specify what these additional uses of revenues can be used for. And so again, it says in making these expenditures, LPCs are expected to develop and consistently apply a fair process to ensure that a reasonable and commensurate benefit is present. So this is really referring to any of surplus revenue. And so these expenses would include, but of course not limited to, charitable contributions and sponsorships, memberships of trade organizations, Colanos, Rotaries, what have you, advertising, and of course that needs to be specific to electric. Maybe a safety message or energy efficiency, that type of advertising. And then finally, economic development. And then in 2019, to your question earlier, Mr. Wood, in 2019, we added the broadband authorization, which said that if an LPC comes to our process, that they could use surplus revenue to establish or loan startup money to create a broadband entity. Economic development. I know we have a couple questions around this, so I wanted to make sure we put these bullets in this slide in here. So an LPC may use a justified, reasonable amount of electric system revenues for economic development. They should develop a policy with that, based on some quantifiable criteria, such as jobs, capital investment, growth in some way, and then that policy would have to be applied in a consistent, non-discriminatory manner. course, that's our policy for economic development projects is to determine whether or not the use of those economic development funds, or whether or not the funds should be used for each individual project or purpose. And then under the use of revenue guidelines, I can see must ensure that those investments that benefit to all electric system payers. And then, of course, there's the bottom of the box, that's really the key takeaway of all the above, is our recommendation for any type of economic development expenditure or investment would be that the policy that's established and incorporates all of the above, that those funds are allocated, and a key here would be that they're evaluated on an annual basis, and not, hey, we've developed a policy that makes sense today, might not make sense 2 years from now for whatever reason, and so that it's evaluated on an annual basis to make sure that the electric system operates on a self-sufficient financial basis. And then this is some information that just me and my team put together, so I hope it's not confusing. Please let me know if you have any questions. But what we really just want to show here is what this would look like. So actually, I'm going to back up. So one thing you will notice here we did not put on this slide is I did not put any exact number percentage threshold. That was intentional. And the reason is because, kind of back to the example earlier, about getting water or making, if you try to put a specific parameter, I mean, what's good for one might not make sense for others. So, with that being said, what we did here is we just took a kind of a loose rule of thumb of 2% of total electric system revenue, and just looked at how that might impact the financial of Lexington if that was just blindly used and not evaluated. So we just started with a round number of 2020. So of course you can see here we've got net income ratio and cash ratio. So in the actual category, this is of course actually what the financials show. So in 2020, as you see, the net income ratio was negative. It's not uncommon. Trying to keep rates as low as feasible, sometimes that's just inevitable. So in that scenario, had didn't take 2% of the negative, but had 2% of the total gross revenue, it would just further decrease the net income. And so when you see in 21, net income ratio was 2%, it would have made a break even and so forth. But really the compounding effect here is what we wanted to show. So if you look over here on the right-hand side with the cash ratio for Lexington has been very, it's healthy, but certainly not excessive over the last 5 years. And so if you look at just that 2% of gross revenues, just across these, really just 4.5 years, as of today, at this point, that cash ratio would be down to 7.8%, which we would actually consider as a below healthy threshold. And it would cause red flags and concerns on the short-term viability if a storm were to happen or something. So, and you can see on here at the bottom our target ratio with that. So I know that's through a lot of percentages and numbers out. Does that make sense what we're trying to show here? Okay. All right. And then finally, this is my last slide. This broadband in 2021. Lexington began securing grants to get into the broadband business, and I just wanted to say, I live in Boonville, Mississippi, Prentiss County, northeast corner of Mississippi. I have firsthand seen what rural broadband does for a community. So because I know it's a huge undertaking to do that. I've seen that both through my job and as just a ratepayer and citizen of a rural community. But it's been a godsend there. So I commend y'all for taking that on. But, in February 2022, Lexington was authorized to loan $2.6 million for electric system revenue through our broadband review process. And then here in about 3 months, in September 2024, LexNet, of course the broadband division, will begin repaying that loan at an interest rate of 3% for a term of 19 years. And then Jason and Giovanna and my team will be working along with Brad and his team to complete a cost study that will allocate any shared employees, resources, assets between the electric and broadband subsidiary. I'm doing that. In saying that made me think too, I meant to say this on a previous slide, Leanne, the accounting girl, she does a really, really good job. I know she's going to be very involved with the joint cost study. And when we talk about the monthly and annual reporting, that is always consistently on time, very accurate. We appreciate that. That kind of goes unnoticed and unsaid sometimes because somebody does a really good job, and it just kind of becomes expected they do a good job. But I do want to highlight that. So,
You back up.
I sure do. This one right here? Yes, sir.
Is that on our system?
Yes, sir.
Right, so, not to be judgmental,
Sure.
but with the electric system, where were those numbers, one of this was happening?
Yes, they were. So the actual here is what the numbers are. Yes, sir. And so, yes, sir. This is information that they submitted. The adjusted is just a rough calculation that we did just for illustration purposes.
But that's what you're doing, Sam, to keep up like it is, this is what we're gonna do.
What we were saying is if just we blindly took 2% each year for economic development purposes, that's where it would be.
So it goes back to the question is, does the local authority have the ability to adjust the rates to keep that negative column?
Yes, they would, yes, sir. Again, there would need to be a policy that shows some type of consistent and commensurate benefit to the electorate. But yes, assuming that policy was in place, and you could point to, hey, here's why and here's how we're investing that money, then yes, y'all would have the ability to come in and try to take a rate action to do that. Yes, sir.
The guidelines that you can go back to do that, would y'all work with us to figure out what you could and couldn't do? Make sure those guidelines are help in the middle between the boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. We would like to do that, sir. It's up to you, the local level, to determine what that looks like, but we would certainly be willing to evaluate that and provide our opinion and feedback on it, absolutely. What we could also probably do is connect you with others who have developed policies similar to that and allow y'all to review those and pick, see what people might not make sense.
Tennessee has got a municipality code, and it's 752-303. Y'all familiar with that?
No, sir, I'm not familiar with that
The
number.
reason I'm saying is, governs on this, you can legally take or use of this to be distributed. And according to what they project in here, it's 22.5%. Does that sound something that's right or wrong?
Like a county rate.
Well, what happens is you get 22.5% for the counties. Harrison County gets so much, Decatur County gets so much, Hardin County gets so much, Carroll County does. And then you go to the cities. Okay, the cities get more, or because we are the bigger hub, we get used more like that. But my question in this whole scheme of what they wrote out, I read this thing and what it works out is, that's basically what they've done, it says you can do that. But in having a governing board, which we are, there seems to be no thing other than the fact that the electric system is actually the governing board and not us. So they then decide how much money that is, and they distribute it out. I mean, it's kind of the way I read it, okay? I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong. But now, if we're the governing board, just like every governing board has the ability to augment a salary or something out of that, for being the governing board. Is that a fair question, man?
I understand your question, Craig. I believe what you're referring to is the pilot. That the statute, is that the in lieu payment that they made, the percentage breakdown?
But that goes to everybody the same.
That's correct. Yes,
Everybody.
that's correct. Yes, sir.
Everybody different. So even though Harrison County's not the governing board,
That's right.
and we are the governing board. So is it prudent for us to have a little more or less because we're the governing board, or is it equal no matter what?
Well, that's a state statute issue there, and I'm not an attorney, so
Well, the reason I'm asking is because
Sure.
the heart of the matter is whatever we try to do, if you have a state statute code, and the municipalities have one code, you know, and JPA has a different code. Everybody has a different code, and that was been established at the state legislature level. So again, knowing that is, if you want something done, you actually have to go to the state legislature to change this code to be able to do something like that. I'm just asking, I'm reading and trying to understand what I'm reading here, but knowing what the board would like to do, and then able to have a little money, and that's really what this meeting is about. Is if we can generate a little money, we can use for economic development. That's what we're after. We can grow our industrial park, we can grow the employment base, which we'd like to do. But is this going to limit us in what we can do?
If I'm understanding it right, then I'll be happy to look at it. But if I think I'm understanding what you're asking, then no, sir, I don't think that would limit it. I think it's two separate things. I believe.
Okay.
And so the economic development would be a separate conversation. Now that will, the limitations around the pilot payment in lieu, tax equivalent, whatever you want to call it, that is a state statute. And it's also within the power contract. It just so happens that the Tennessee state law does not contradict the power contract. And so in that case, where the two things don't contradict, the expectation is that the contract and state law would be followed, by the local power company. But as far as the economic development, they would not play a part.
I'm just trying to understand it. And these
I hope this doesn't make it more complicated. The only way they would actually come in is if the economic development did provide, growth, as everybody would hope it would. That would then grow the assets of the electric system, which would then increase the amount. But that's what the tax payments are based off of, the net assets, times the millage rate, and a bunch of other things. But that's the two main things, is assets and the electric. So if the electric department grows, taxable payments would grow.
I guess another question, and you're talking about assets. Okay. The assets that LES has, all right, I'm sure it's on the book, it's reported what it is. I know in doing bond buying, they look at the debt that the whole city incurs, and they basically say your bond rating won't be good because of the debt that you incur. But in actuality, what the stream of revenue that system can generate does not put it in the category that you lose money on. Any utility has the ability to adjust rate because you're not supposed to lose money anyway. You're supposed to adjust and you're supposed to keep your cash above what you pay out. So if you don't, it's your own fault you've done that, but it don't make you a bad risk to do a bond, the way I see it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it.
That's a good question. So, in these first slides, we appreciate that time. I'm hoping it's kind of a high, overview there might help with some of the things. This is just the broad umbrella of what regulatory assurance does. Again, me, Jason, and Yvonne fall into that dark blue category there of assurance and compliance. What they do is for administrative purposes. And I'm done with my spiel, so I'll open it up to any questions.
What I thought I'd do on our side, I know I have reached out to the board and I've asked them for questions and to send to y'all, so that way you kind of have an understanding. So what I'm fixing to do right now is go to the board. I've kind of tried to write down what all y'all asked, but I'm going to let y'all individually ask the questions you have. Once I see it, I'll check it off my list. I know Alderman Williams is at the state tournament. He had a few questions. If y'all don't ask those same questions, I'll ask his for him in his absence. I'm going to go with y'all, whoever wants to start. Roger, don't be bashful, just start. All right, no questions on the board?
Can you not go over the ones that we should be doing?
We can. I'll just start with Dave's questions. His first question was, once a loan from LES to LexNet for broadband is paid off, what limitations and restrictions on future revenue pricing the TVA enforce? What will TVA's involvement legally going to be after the loan is paid off? LexNet will be owned by the city of Lexington, not TVA. Can the city of Lexington benefit from the revenues of LexNet? If not, and TVA has say so on this, help us understand why and what the boundaries are. You know, one thing I will say before y'all dive into that, and I've explained to our board, they had a choice when broadband came. The city could have done the project, or LES could have done the project. Well, we chose for LES to do the project. And so it falls under the umbrella of LES and not the city. So kind of, I think the board's wondering about the revenue. Of course, we all know the grant's 27.4 million. We did a bond for 22. Well, it's going to be a while before you start seeing profit come in. So, but once that comes in, I think the board wants to know who gets that profit. Does it in turn go back into the system to keep rates low for broadband? What's y'all's TVA's opinion on that?
Sure. So in true regulator fashion, I'll say we do not have control over it. But I'm joking. So I mean, the simple truth is no, we do not have purview over the use of broadband funds. But assuming, of course, that electric is repaid as agreed upon, we talked about 3% over 19 years or sooner, and as long as whatever revenue stream, funds, however you want to call it, is used in broadband, does not jeopardize broadband to where they cannot fairly repay their joint cost with the electric. As long as those two things are satisfied, we have zero authority over any non-electric funds, be it broadband or just like any other department. But again, in this case, to your point, electric does have some proverbial skin in the game. And so as long as that is satisfied, then we have no such thing.
Basically, as long as the loan gets paid back, and as long as they're paying the electric system for whatever